Hello and welcome back to OCD Coded. My name's Erin Brown, licensed marriage and family therapist and mental health counselor. I have OCD myself, and my hope with this is to help you learn how to use your OCD as a superpower and to see it as a strength and not something that's an obstacle. And so today, part of what we're going to be talking about is a little more about shadow work. And how to start applying that with OCD, why it's hard with OCD, and how to, maybe start to begin to work on your own or maybe with your own therapist, preferably, especially if you get stuck in any places. And that's kind of that idea too, in its own way of starting to work on like what things do we need to do ourselves and what things do we need to ask the help of others for? What do we need a mirror for from another person? And how hard that is with OCD, with the over responsibility part, especially of OCD, of feeling that, being responsible for everything and really feeling responsible even for telling ourselves the truth about everything and feeling hyper vigilant about that and finding it hard to practice positive affirmations, even because it's like, well, if I don't believe those are true, then I can't practice saying them to myself because then I'm lying to myself. And that's, the whole fake it till you make it is really hard for OCD because it's like, well, how can you fake it? There's such a, with that responsibility, it's also a wanting to be really genuine, which all of these come from such a good place and such good instincts. And our goal is to help see that and take away maybe or help reduce some of the rigidity around it or feeling like it has to be 100% of the time, the perfectionism piece of it, that there, like if there is one transgression or mistake or any kind of thing, that it means the rest don't count for anything. And it's just that really big feeling of responsibility for it all. And that with shadow work, that can be a piece of it. And with manifestation being kind of a piece of this as well, that these are all things that OCD really struggles with. Because with manifestation too, there's a lot of talk about, you have to feel how you would feel as if you already had the thing. Um, and that like, and part of it is the certainty, I believe that it'll happen, or I believe that it's possible that it'll happen is one of the ways that I work with that as well. And but that to really start to think about how with OCD, with that feeling of how do I help myself feel that way without feeling like it's disingenuous or that I'm possibly doing it wrong? Because that's the other part that makes it really difficult is OCD being the doubting disease, it becomes, well, what if I do it wrong and I end up manifesting something bad for me or for somebody else? Or what if I make a mistake and it turns out that I mess it up? It just feels this really over responsibility to get it exactly right. And that if I get it wrong, that the fault and the blame is on me, and how to really get through that piece of that it doesn't have to be fault. That doesn't have to be shame and blame, that we can do this without any of that, and how that can be really productive with it. And so for shadow work, the piece of this with manifestation or, and how it all ties together is about the, and I'm laughing because in this moment I'm noticing like part of one of the things I want to talk about too with OCD was about the knows. I say a lot in the videos, you may have noticed, and that it becomes that that somewhat of a tick like that can be very common with OCD as well as picking is actually some is tied with OCD. It's you approach it a little differently, but I just wanted to kind of remind about some of the other ways that those things are involved, and that how it does come from an anxiety of feeling I almost did it again. And now I'm over aware of it. And this is what happens. And this is the loop that happens with it all. So I'm glad I can share with all of you and try to really just be transparent about it. And that's what I try and lean into, is that genuineness and that transparency and having to lead by example. And I find it really difficult as I try to write a book and do the things like these videos, even about really getting in my head or doing it perfectly, and how, that it just nothing feels good enough. And so it's so difficult to get out of my head and just get into the action of doing the thing. And I think that goes so much with shadow work and manifestation as well, that with shadow work, it becomes of being able to look at those parts of myself that I might not like or I think are imperfect or I know are imperfect, and be able to accept them. And OCD really does have a hard time with acceptance. And I do believe that is a big piece of it, where it just there's not, it really, and I think that involves with the manifestation piece where it gets in the thought action fusion or the feeling of like if I accept it, then it means I'm making it happen. Like maybe if I don't accept it, then I'll be able to stop it from happening, which is so difficult too, because I mean that's one of the great obsessions of humanity is how to go back in time and change something or you know, um be able to, right, make a different decision than you did before. Play out the tape is one of the things I say, or one of the ways I call it, as how what my life would have been like if I had gone this way instead of that way, or made this decision or that decision. And so OCD really thinks that, okay, well, maybe if I just don't accept that this is what's happening or that that did happen, then it won't be true. And releasing that is just so hard. And it always reminds me of the quote, everything I've ever let go of has claw marks on it. And that feels very true for OCD and for me personally, that I just have such a hard time letting it go because it feels like there's something I should be doing about it. There's some way that I contributed to this problem and then I have this over responsibility for fixing it. And in the way of somehow that makes me feel more safe because it feels more hopeful that, well, if something's wrong with me, then I can do something about it rather than if something doesn't turn out okay and there's just nothing I can do about it and the powerless feeling that comes with that and how difficult that can be to cope with as well. And so when I think about shadow work in the lens of OCD, I think of how to walk courageously or confidently toward myself. And that it doesn't mean I'm 100% confident. And that's what OCD, when my brain will say, like, well, I'm not confident, so I can't walk toward that. But it doesn't have to mean you're 100% confident. It just is being able to do the thing while still being afraid. And that's what I think of too, that I don't have to rationalize through it. I don't have to make it all make sense. I don't have to be able to know all the information before getting started and I don't have to replay it a million times before it gets started. It's just how do I get out of my head and into action sooner? Um, and trying to learn from my mistakes and trying instead of trying to prevent mistakes, how do I make it okay to make mistakes, but then learn from those and how focusing on not trying to make mistakes ends up making me make more mistakes. And if I can just release all of that and be able to accept that I'm going to make mistakes, but that the way to learn from it and that shame and punishment don't work. How can I practice encouraging myself in that? I promise that'll actually help me to do it more than blaming and getting mad and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this, Aaron, and instead being able to just accept that, okay, that is going to be part of it. And I'm going to take the seed of learning from it and I'm going to continue forward. But that idea of how do I release, and that releasing doesn't mean I'm like forgetting about it. Releasing doesn't mean it only happens one time, that I will have to think about that I'll notice. I just have to notice as soon as I'm gripping onto something again. And how do I practice releasing it and taking a deep breath? And then as soon as I notice I'm gripping something again, how do I take a deep breath and just really recognizing that my mind will be telling me, the OCD will be telling me, if we just go around this merry-go-round one more time, we'll get an answer or it'll help. But that is all part of the distraction and almost and a part of the things we're trying to move through of like that I can honor and yes those things to be true, as well as I'm going to do the thing also. I'm going to the maybe not, that maybe this will happen, maybe it won't, but that the only way is to face these head on or heart on is what I think of also with like to think of it not just with my head but with my heart also, and how that'll free up so much of the energy that I need to try to manifest something or to try to focus my energy not on the doubt and the fear, but how can I see that, um, as it's been said, like pain is a teacher. And I hesitate to say it in those ways, but but that like, that we're not meant to have perfectly smooth lives. And we're not, that is part of the growth process, and that there's so many different types of ways of growth, but that most of them involve some kind of, it's not necessarily comfortable. That comfortability of means not necessarily, that's the safety, that's the rest zone, but there's times to push and there's times to rest. And so we need both and that balance of both. And that OCD really gets stuck on the comfort zone and the comforts of the comfort zone and now, and that like the starting and stopping of OCD and how that's so much about comfort zone too, because it's hard to get started in something because I know once I get started and I feel comfortable there, I'm not going to want to stop. And so, but just knowing that and being aware of it starts to loosen up some of those shackles that bind our minds and be able to unlock our hearts, that we don't have to stay in that one place, that I can consult it. And that's the next piece that we're really going to be going into, is that one of the ways of freeing the shadow side is learning, when do I need to use it and how can I use it responsibly? It's not about avoiding the triggers, it's not about avoiding the shadow, but how can I use it responsibly and be able to, um, you know, be able to see that there's a time and a place for that, that it is a balance. It's not a good and an evil situation. It is a light and a shadow, more of a conscious and a subconscious kind of thing. And when I look at it through that lens and I can make the conscious light, then I can have so many more choices in the moment. And it all starts with just that pause and awareness, and then making that choice in the moment to do something different than I've done before and try something new. So I hope that for all of you. And until next time, I'll see you. Have a good one.